It's with some sadness and with love that I'm making this video to let you know that um, after 13 years of my teaching at the studio space that's come to be known as Emeryville Yoga Center, I'm having to close the studio space by the end of October of this year. I want you to know a couple things. First, I'm going to talk about why it's closing and how I tried to keep it open. And then I want to share with you a little bit of the story about how the studio came to be in the first place. So, most of you know that I left the Bay Area, moved with my family to Washington State this year, which is a wonderful move for me personally and for my kids. But of course, it was hard to leave students and the studio that have been my home base for the last 13 years. I didn't make the decision lightly. We tossed around a lot of ideas about whether to stay or go or stay closer for about 2 years before we made the final decision. And, you know, these kinds of decisions are rarely black and white, but it was the best choice given all of the options. Part of it being, of course, as many of you know, that it's so expensive to live sustainably as a family in the Bay Area right now. And we were looking for a life that was simpler, filled with more nature and with better education options for our kids, and more of a retreat space for our own personal practices and to cultivate our ability to share the teachings of yoga and the Vedic tradition with others. We really needed an environment that's more supportive of that for our hearts and souls and minds, so we can support all the people that are living in intense urban environments. So my hope was to keep the studio open for as long as I could sustain it from a distance, and then hopefully to pass the studio on to another teacher who would run it in the same way. And I had multiple conversations with different yoga teachers who were interested in possibly taking it on. And I was willing to keep running it for the next year from a distance. Unfortunately, I found out in August that my landlord was going to be raising my costs by an additional $700 per month. And with my not being there to actually earn an income myself in the studio space, it made it over the edge of possibility for me to sustain it. Honestly, the rent is relatively reasonable enough that I thought another teacher might still take it on, but it became over the edge for all of the teachers that were themselves considering it. As you can imagine, it's hard for many professionals to sustain living in the Bay Area on relatively high incomes. And so for people in the healing and transformational arts, it's quite a challenge to take on the extra cost of a studio space. So of course the teachers want it to keep going. Of course the students would love the space to continue, and we do have to unfortunately close it. These things happen, life ebbs and flows and changes, and the teachers are in the process now of finding a new space to offer private sessions, semi-private sessions, and classes. So I will keep everyone posted about that. And I'll be putting that up on the Emeryville Yoga website and send it out in newsletters. I just don't want to tell you exactly what's happening until I'm absolutely sure. But I want you to know that the teachers are all working on where they'll end up, particularly the Shri teachers, Marlene and Leslie, are looking at where they'll be able to offer you classes, privates and semi-privates, starting in November so that you can continue on. They're not going anywhere at the moment, and they plan to keep teaching you and others. There are other teachers that I've trained in the area as well, in Marin and Sonoma and San Francisco. So I will be making up a list of all the options for you. And finally, in terms of what's to come, I have, as many of you know, currently a number of yoga philosophy courses online, which you can take. Those of you who love the contemplations and philosophy that I always thread into my teachings of yoga classes might really enjoy those. I will be in the Bay on October 20th, and I have a few spots left in my one-day immersion, and you can learn about that. It's called the Nectar of Love at emeryvilleyoga.com as well, or you can just email me to get the information. And I will be back periodically. And finally, I'll be making some yoga classes available for you to do with me online. And so just watch for emails to let you know about that. All right. So I just want to say thank you so much to those of you who have been studying with me and the other teachers for so many years. Some of you since the very beginning of my move to the Bay Area 13 years ago, some of you for 10 years, 7 years, or the last 2 years. And I hold those relationships all very preciously in my heart. Each of you who has studied with me, and even those of you who have studied with the teachers that I've trained, you're very precious to me. The hardest thing for me to leave in the Bay Area was the studio and the students that I've been with for so many years, and even the students that were new to me that I wish we had more regular in-person time together. And so I want you to know that you are in my heart and I hold you dear to me. I know that we find each other in this life because we're meant to, and especially when we engage in the kind of intimate relationship that is the relationship between yoga teacher and student, or yoga colleagues, as part of the group, the gana of yogis. This is a very intimate and meaningful relationship. I don't take it lightly at all, and I hope that we'll continue to be in touch through yoga and through our lives for years to come. Thank you for being a part of my life, and this isn't the end, it's just a shift. Swagatam.